They're making the city better, but they're doing nothing for the people that the city belongs to. This is our city, but it's not our city anymore because they pushed us all out.
My name is Lee Youngblood. I've been living in this apartment for about a little over 15 years. When 2009, 2010 was when I started getting stopped by the police. I was working down on 16th and K, and I would walk through Chinatown sometimes coming home. One time when I was walking there, I met a friend. A police car pulled up. It told both of us, put our hands behind our back and all that stuff. I asked him why he was stopping me, and he said because I had been walking frequently, suspiciously through the neighborhood. I said, I live in this neighborhood. That's why I walk frequently through this neighborhood. And it was so embarrassing because a lot of white people were just getting off work and they were probably walking through the area coming home from work. And I was saying to myself, these white people were probably saying, good job, police. You do your job, get these people out of here. And that's what they were doing. They were letting people know they were doing their job. I said, this is all part of the neighborhood changing process. I kind of suspect that my days are probably numbered here because they built this tunnel down the street between 8th Street and E Street, building all those new places on top of the expressway. I think this area probably, somebody might buy this land pretty soon and it's just a matter of time. I figure I might have a couple years left. It's gotta be realistic.
People's perception of Noma is very much that it's big buildings and it's high-rise office, high-rise apartment. And so they're often very surprised when they come to my house because they know the address is Noma. And it's like, oh, there's this little neighborhood here with little tiny houses and people who know each other. And that seems to surprise people. My name is Claire Reistacher. We're at my house at 914 3rd Street Northeast in Washington, D.C. I bought the house in October of 2013. I used to live near here, a few blocks away. I had been looking for a house to buy for several years, so I started looking here because it was a neighborhood that I was familiar and comfortable with. The neighborhood here is definitely less diverse than it was when I lived here before in 2006. Most of my neighbors are white, and even the black neighbors are mostly people who've moved here more recently. There's only a few houses that I know in the immediate block around me that are still occupied by the same families that have occupied them for decades. And there isn't always a whole lot of social mixing between those people who've lived here for a really long time and the newer neighbors, and I regret that. I think that we lose something. But at this point, the gentrification process on this end of H Street is pretty thorough. And I'm obviously a part of that. I didn't move here because of that, but I moved here because of the same forces that caused that. From an individual level, everybody wants to buy a house they can afford. And if housing prices keep going up, that means you can't buy houses in the neighborhoods you've always lived in. The longtime homeowners at least get the consolation that they've just sold their house and made hopefully quite a lot of profit on it. The long-term renters, as the rents rise, get no consolation. They simply have to move somewhere else because they suddenly can't afford the rent. It's not a good process, but it's a hard one to stop.
My name is Tabitha Adonia Bricey. We are located at 908 3rd Street Southwest. Me and my husband moved here to find a better neighborhood to raise our kids in, and this happened to be it. It's good that they're finally paying attention to the city, but it forces a lot of people out, and it seems that they prey on the elderly or, the low income. I think eventually that they're going to remove the housing projects. I think they've been in motion to do that for a very long time. And that's sad because a lot of people need DC housing, and places like here, the Greenleaf Housing Project or Berry Farms Housing Project, because not everybody can afford to live in, these buildings that they're building. Unless you really, really have a good job, you can't afford to live in the city. Diversity is good. It's good to have some of everybody in the neighborhood, you know. But I think a lot of times that they try to push minorities out. When they start with projects out like this, especially in big cities, the goal is to push out the minority and bring in the majority.
It's not more so about the majority and minority. It's more so
Yeah, that's true.
where the money's coming from.
Yeah, pretty much. Wherever the money is coming from, that's who they're going with. If the money was coming from a cat, that's who's going to have the place.
My name is Marshall Jackson, and we're at 912 3rd Street Southeast in Washington, D.C. We moved from Atlanta, Georgia, just over 2 months. I've been familiar with the area for at least 10 years, and it has evolved quite a bit. I believe the public housing projects were still here. It was not thought of as a desirable place to live. Now it's changed quite a bit. It's very walkable, feels very safe. There are lots of things to do. Good mix of people, a very diverse neighborhood. There's a certain percentage of the housing here that is set aside for lower income families. I think that's appropriate. A side effect of gentrification is that property values go up. Housing set-asides for lower income people are, one answer to that. I don't know if it's the only answer. It's an interesting thought about the way gentrification happened in the various neighborhoods. Prior to my time in Atlanta, I lived in Northwest in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood. And the gentrification has happened there as well. Columbia Heights is an excellent example. The metro stop came, and then things just blossomed up around it. The neighborhoods in Northwest, even though they have gentrified, they feel like more old DC. Whereas in Southeast, where we are, everything seems to have been bulldozed and built new. And I tell people this is a totally different experience. It's like living in a different city. It's just the way it is. We'll be in the neighborhood for as far as I have a time horizon to see. It is expensive. Gentrification that I had mentioned earlier drives up property values, and yes, I can afford to live here, but will I be able to do so forever? I don't know. That parking lot is is slotted to become an apartment building.